Month 3 of these monthly movie recaps. Let's go. The first movie I watched in the exciting month of March was Matt Reeves' The Batman. So I tried not to get too hyped up about this movie, but ended up doing so anyway because it looked legitimately great. And after watching the film, I'm glad to say that it lived up to a lot of my high expectations. This is definitely the most comic accurate Batman movie thus far. It's a nice blend of realism and fantasy, I would say somewhere between the Nolan and Burton movies. There's a lot of articles claiming it to be the most realistic Batman yet, and that is just total BS. The 4 comics it reminded me of most were Long Halloween, Year One, Hush, and Zero Year. And it's very easy to see the inspiration that Matt Reeves took from those comics. The movie is edgy, but I never found it to be annoying. Instead, I embraced the edginess. The film is beautifully shot by Greg Fraser. This is one of the best looking comic book movies ever made. The movie is also beautifully scored by Michael Giacchino. It's one of the best superhero movie soundtracks I've heard in a very long time. The cast is all excellent here. I never really did doubt in Robert Pattinson, but I loved him in the role. His mannerisms reminded me of Tom King's Batman, so that was neat to see. The movie is overly long. All superhero movies are now, but it's well paced. I was never bored, and I think that slow burn thriller vibe that it has helped a lot with that. It is also always nice to see a superhero movie where the hero actually helps people. I feel like that is such an important element that's always missing from these superhero movies. I give this one high praise, a thumbs up for sure, and I would definitely like to see it again sometime soon. The next movie I watched was on Disney+, the new Pixar movie, Turning Red. I went into this movie expecting another serviceable yet somewhat mediocre Pixar film, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. The film is beautifully animated and takes a lot of inspiration from late 90s, early 2000s anime, but it never feels out of place. It fits the movie's tone very well. There's a lot of fun facial expressions here that you wouldn't see in any other Pixar movies. The story's about a lot of things, but it doesn't shy away from topics like puberty or girls getting their periods, which was nice to see. The film is called Turning Red. Generational trauma seems to play a big role with this film, which is neat to see. It seems to be a thing Disney's doing a lot of lately, but I do feel it is an important issue for these films to explore, and I like that a lot of movies are doing that now. The movie is set in the 2000s, so there's lots of nostalgia here, but it never feels too pandering. It's nice to see a point of view rarely explored in family films as well. We rarely get Pixar movies with female leads, so that was appreciated. It felt personal in a good way, and with films like Luca and now this, I would love to see that trend continue with Pixar. Definitely a thumbs up. I don't know if everyone will like it, but I sure did, and consider it among Pixar's best of the past decade or so. The next movie I watched was a Netflix original movie. When you hear that, you just know it's gonna feel like a film generated by an AI. That movie was The Adam Project from director Shawn Levy, a director who is known to make consistently watchable movies. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. The Adam Project is no exception. A movie about Ryan Reynolds fighting a war in the future as he travels to warn his past self, but ends up going too far back in time, meeting himself as a young boy instead. I often saw in articles this movie being described as very Amblin inspired, which is kind of a lie. The only thing really Amblin here is that there's a kid in it. It felt like a combination of MCU and low-budget B-movies to me, only in this case, a B-movie with a very high budget. It's got a pretty generic sci-fi movie plot, but it's carried by star power like Ryan Reynolds and Zoe Saldana. Ryan Reynolds is as annoying as usual, but I guess that's what makes him kinda cute. Younger Adam doesn't look anything like Ryan Reynolds, but I don't care. At least they didn't CG Ryan Reynolds' face onto a little kid. If this were a Disney movie, there'd be a high chance that they would have done that. They did CG a young adult Catherine Keener though, and that shit was terrifying. So I went into this expecting a bad movie, but I was surprised that I actually enjoyed myself for the most part. Some of the father-son bonding stuff was nice, and the moments with just talking really was the highlight of the movie. There's a weird Deadpool reference here, which Was that some sort of teaser since Sean Levy's directing Deadpool 3 now? It also had one of the funniest villain deaths of all time. I don't think it was intentional either. I mean, if you've seen this movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Despite all of this high praise, I'm gonna give this movie a meh. I did enjoy it. It definitely leaned a lot closer to a thumbs up, but there was nothing that I really loved about it. It felt a little generic, and as I said before, it's perfectly watchable. It's nothing you need to seek out immediately, but if you have a passing interest, then I'd say feel free to check it out. And that's all of the new movies I watched for now. I did want to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, but discovered its release will be limited till April, so I may include that one with next month's reviews. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.